3 seconds. That's all it takes to decide the fate of a kingdom. 3 seconds to choose fear or faith, weapons or wisdom, control or compassion. This is the story of a leader who looked at an empire surrounded by enemies and chose the most dangerous strategy of all. He invested in people instead of weapons. When this leader rose to power, the empire was vast but fragile. Borders were guarded by armies, yet rebellion brewed inside. Different cultures, languages, beliefs, and traditions existed side by side, not united but merely contained. Advisors urged the same old solution: raise more troops, forge more swords, build higher walls. Fear, they said, was the only glue strong enough to hold the empire together. But this leader saw something others did not. He understood that weapons can force obedience, but they can never inspire loyalty. He realized that an empire held together by fear must constantly sharpen its blades. Because the moment fear weakens, everything collapses. And so he asked a revolutionary question: what if the strength of the empire came not from how many enemies it could destroy, but from how many lives it could uplift? Instead of ruling from a distant throne, he chose proximity. He listened. He invited scholars of different beliefs to speak freely. He welcomed debate instead of silencing it. He met farmers, merchants, artists, and teachers, not as subjects, but as partners in building the future, where others saw chaos and diversity. He saw potential, where others saw threats. He saw talent waiting to be unlocked. His first major investment was trust. He reduced persecution and replaced it with tolerance. People were no longer judged by their faith or background, but by their ability and contribution. This single decision did more to stabilize the empire than 10,000 soldiers ever could. When people feel respected, they stop plotting rebellion and start building progress. Then came education. Instead of pouring all resources into weapons, he poured them into minds. Schools, centers of learning, and places of dialogue flourished. Scholars were supported, scientists encouraged, artists celebrated. Knowledge moved freely across the empire. And innovation followed. Agriculture improved, trade expanded. Administration became efficient. Prosperity spread, not through conquest, but through competence. Critics grew louder. They warned him he was weakening the empire. They claimed enemies would exploit kindness. They argued that without constant military expansion, the empire would fall. But the leader understood something timeless: the skilled, educated, and motivated population is the most advanced defense system ever created. He did not abolish the army. He transformed it. Soldiers were trained not just to fight, but to protect civilians, infrastructure, and stability. They were taught discipline, ethics, and purpose. The army became a shield for progress, not a tool of oppression. And because the people trusted the state, they supported the army willingly, not reluctantly. As the years passed, the results became undeniable. Regions once prone to revolt became centers of productivity. Trade routes thrived because merchants felt safe. Art and architecture flourished because creativity was protected. Diplomacy replaced constant warfare because neighboring powers recognized something new. This was not an empire desperate to dominate, but one confident enough to grow from within. The leader understood that real leadership is multiplication, not control. Weapons can only do what they are commanded to do. People, when empowered, do more than they are ever asked. Every teacher trained another generation. Every artisan inspired new skills. Every administrator improved systems that outlived individual reigns. The empire began to sustain itself through human potential. Perhaps the most radical thing this leader did was accept disagreement. He believed that truth grows stronger when challenged. Instead of silencing opposing views, he created spaces for dialogue. Decisions were informed by many perspectives, making them wiser and more resilient. Unity was not enforced uniformity, but shared purpose. And when conflict eventually came, as it always does, the empire stood firm. Not because it had the largest army, but because it had something greater: people who believed the empire was worth defending. Farmers protected supply lines. Merchants funded logistics. Scholars advised strategy. Soldiers fought with conviction. The empire did not survive by fear. It endured by faith. This leader's greatest legacy was not territory, monuments, or victories. It was a system that outlived him, a culture that rewarded talent, encouraged learning, and valued human dignity, long after weapons rusted and enemies faded. The institutions he built continued to shape generations. And here is why this story matters now. Because today, many leaders still choose weapons over wisdom, control over cultivation, power over people. But history teaches us this truth again and again. Civilizations rise when leaders invest in human potential, and they fall when leaders neglect it. You don't need to rule an empire to apply this lesson. If you lead a team, invest in skills. If you build a business, invest in people. If you raise a family, invest in values. If you lead yourself, invest in growth. Fear may get quick results, but empowerment builds lasting impact. The strongest leaders don't ask, "How do I dominate?" They ask, "How do I develop?" Because when you help people grow, they help the mission grow. When you invest in minds, you future-proof your vision. When you choose people over weapons, you choose legacy over momentary power. So remember this story: when the world tells you strength is loud, aggressive, and destructive, true strength is patient, intelligent, and human. The greatest leaders in history were not just conquerors of land, but cultivators of people. If this message inspired you, don't let it end here. Like this video so more people can hear it. Share it with someone who believes in leadership with purpose. And subscribe to the channel for more stories that turn history into wisdom and wisdom into action. Together, we don't just watch history, we learn how to lead from it.